It's interesting that those rejections kind of push you towards where you need to go.
Yes.
Right? Because we always look at those obstacles and those issues and those things as like a rejection of yourself, which they feel like at the time, but a lot of the time you're kind of destined for something else.
That is exactly right. And that's how I see it now.
Yeah.
Just walking through the city with my suitcase. I'm not staying for a trip. I'm just staying for a few hours to tape an interview. This time, Julian McMahon is interviewing me. I'm the guest. So I'm walking over to the Westgate, New York, and I'm going to stay a while.
Hey everybody, Julian McMahon here. Julian McMahon from Really Famous Podcast. Okay, we have turned the tables here today. Kara is my guest as opposed to me being hers. So get ready, it's going to be fun. Okay, so I wanted to start really simple. Probably for my own kind of benefit, because this is my first time doing this kind of thing, but also because I wanted to get to know you a little bit, and I thought it would be interesting for your audience to get to know you a little bit as well. Does that
I
work
love
for
it.
you? Okay, so firstly, I have to ask you. You always pick up the phone, Kara.
Yeah, I do.
Kara, yeah. It's Kara. This is
Oh,
Kara.
yeah, I do.
Yeah. And then I'm interested in your pronunciation because I would do I think I'd do Kara, but that's kind of an English, British, Australian thing. What Kara?
Yeah.
What's
Okay.
Kara? Where's that?
Okay, so first of all, I could see when you did the intro before, I saw you look at me when you said my name as if hoping that it was right. It was right. That's how I say it.
No, because I listen. I've heard you say it so many times.
Yes.
But
right.
I think I may have pronounced it incorrectly before, and I was wondering where it comes from. And
So I was named. My parents named me after a Kara that they knew.
Right.
So really close friends of theirs had a daughter, and they named her Kara.
Right.
And I don't know if they just like that name or whatever, but that's what they named me. And then when we would get together, she would be big and I would be little.
Oh,
so
cute.
we'd call each other big and little. But
so you actually met the Kara.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I haven't seen her in years, but we do know each other.
Right.
So, and sometimes my dad will email her accidentally instead of me.
Oh, that's funny.
He'll start typing in Kara.
Hey, listen, go get the mail.
Right.
You're the Kara.
Right.
the
Listen,
Kara
I've
will be
had
like,
it with you, Kara. And she'll email back. Yeah, this is wrong.
This time you're going to do as you're told.
Right, exactly. People call me Kara, Kara.
Right.
I accept it all.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so we're going to start at the beginning, like the very beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in New Jersey, Jersey
Okay.
girl all the way.
Yep.
In the suburbs, second child, second of two only. Nice little family with two teachers as parents. My dad was a school social worker, and my mom was an elementary school teacher way back when. So yeah, born in the hospital, regular. Again, no big story there. And grew up in the same little town outside of New York City for 18 years. My parents are still there.
Ah,
My parents live in the same house.
they're still in the same house?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Very stable life I had.
Yeah, good for you.
Which is why I like to go off and have adventures.
You are adventurous, I know that. But we'll get to that a little bit later.
Okay.
You know what my question was meant to be was living in Jersey, so growing up in Jersey. So like growing up in Sydney, I grew up on the outside of Sydney, but it's only a few minutes and you go to town to do something, whatever it is, right?
Okay.
Did you come into Manhattan as a kid?
Yeah, definitely. So
And
my parents would bring me in, not that often, but for sure. I think there are plenty of people in the suburbs who never venture into the city,
Yeah.
but my parents always brought me in for different things. So we
Right.
would go to Broadway shows, for example. We would go to Chinatown to eat. My grandparents lived in the Bronx, so we would go see them. That's a little different. You're going over the George Washington Bridge, and instead of going into Midtown,
Yep.
to the south,
Yep,
you
yep,
go
yep.
north into the Bronx, and that's entirely different. But so we would go in to see them regularly. But my parents were big on like culture, arts and culture, and bringing us in as kids. So yeah, it wasn't new to me, but I didn't really get to know it until I was an adult. Yeah.
And so like when you're a teenage kid or whatever that period of time is, I don't know what it is in America, but at some point in time when you start going out to bars and stuff, did you come and go out to bars? Did you sneak into New York?
Didn't. I honestly
You're
didn't.
a good girl.
I
You were
know,
like,
I know. I was so good that I kept it all in town. All my partying in
You're
town.
like, all right, that's funny.
So good.
I can imagine sneaking into this city and just being like,
yeah.
I mean,
Well, we did. After the prom, we would all go into the city.
Okay.
So it was like a planned thing. So we'd
Yeah.
have our prom, which would
Yeah.
be in New Jersey,
Yeah.
and then our party bus or limos, depending on which prom it was,
Yeah.
would take all the kids from the prom, and we'd go to either Dangerfields, I think was one of them. I think it was a comedy club. I don't know why.
Rodney Dangerfield's?
I don't even know.
Because he has that
doesn't
place in
make sense.
Midtown, right?
What was it? His place?
Yeah.
I mean, it should have been if with the name
Well,
like
Dangerfield's is his comedy.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Still there.
So I feel like that was one of the places, and there was one other. And you're making me remember this now. When I had my sweet 16, when I turned 16, I have an older sister, and she had a big party when she did, but I was never a party person. So I chose instead to take 3 of my friends. My parents paid for a limo, and 3 of my friends into the city to see. I'm pretty sure we saw a play, but I don't remember what it was. Like I want to say. I never saw it though. I'm mixing things up in my mind. I want to say it was A Chorus Line, but I think A Chorus Line was long gone by the time I turned 16. And I'm sure I never saw it, but I used to have the tape, like the cassette tape.
You think
See,
you
you're
might have
learning all
seen
these
it.
things about me that you would never ask about these
This was
things.
too easy. Way too easy.
These are things you're tapping into things that I don't even think about. But yeah, so so I used to, when I was growing up, I used to dance in my room with the cassette tapes, and A Chorus Line was one of them.
Right.
I loved that tape, but I
Yeah,
know I
yeah.
never saw it.
Oh
So I have
my
no
God,
idea
the
what we actually
cassette
saw.
tapes.
Yeah.
How awesome were cassette tapes?
Yeah. Where they would get stuck and like rip
Yeah.
and things, get all twisted.
How frustrated. Remember the cart thing came in? You put them in the cart thing, you'd be like,
Yeah. And you have a
and
pencil
you'd be so
to
upset
twist
because
the
there
thing.
goes your music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I had this question that I wanted to ask you, but I kind of feel like we've kind of gone around it a little bit. But when you look back at your childhood and you growing up, what's your kind of favorite kind of standout memory of what that was like?
I feel like I was just really lucky to land in the family that I landed in. Like my parents are so healthy and communicative and supportive and loving. And so it was really just a very comfortable and happy childhood.
That's so nice.
So just overall,
So you always felt safe and secure,
always.
and communication was open, so you could talk about whatever you wanted. And
Yeah.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
great.
I mean, I kept things to myself. Also, there are certain
Well,
things.
you got to grow up on, you know, you
Exactly.
can't grow up being open about everything. I don't think you have to kind of have your own bits, right? Your
Sure,
own things
sure.
that are,
It's interesting because just recently I was talking to my daughter about this the other night, how I realized that certain things that people would say to me when I was growing up, if it like, I would, I mean, it's such a long story. I don't really want to get into the whole thing, but like if somebody would say something that wasn't so nice to me as a kid, I was growing up, you know, and I'd be like, I would just keep it to myself. I never talked about it with anybody. And I didn't realize that can make you actually keep the memory longer and make it
instead
once
of letting
you
it out.
when you
it's an interesting kind of
internalize
thing,
it.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So like I remember
There's
a couple.
I kind of like testing that theory a bit of like keeping something in versus getting it out. I kind of think getting it out quicker is better.
I think so. I
Right?
mean, as a therapist, I can tell you that's definitely better
Yeah.
when it's inside.
That's what I always say to my family because I'm, you know, they're always like, oh, you got so upset about that or whatever. And I go, I got it out. I'm good.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
trust me, I'm good within minutes.
I say
Right?
it. I say what I feel. I do.
Yeah.
Almost all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if you see me saying something, maybe you think I'm upset or whatever, it's like, great, then I'm done.
What I've had to learn is how you affect other people, right? Particularly once you have kids, you got to be cautious. You have to be a little careful of what you say and how you say it.
Sure.
I've had to learn how to kind of, it's just certainly a trickier thing once you have kids. Okay, jumping ahead, time frame wise, where'd you go to college?
University of Florida.
Florida, which is in Miami?
Gainesville.
Oh, Gainesville, okay. University of Miami, okay, Gainesville.
It's in the middle of Florida, like
Right.
not where I would normally choose to live, but
Okay.
that was really the school to go to.
Okay, why was it the school to go to?
I wanted to go to a really big school, and that's the biggest.
What's it,
probably
30,000?
40,000 when I
40,000.
went. I wanted that. And as I said, I wanted adventure because I'm growing up in this stable place. And I always felt like I did not belong in New Jersey. I'm like, I felt I belonged in California the whole time growing up. Maybe not the whole time, but maybe middle school and older.
Right.
So I felt California and not a cold weather fan. And so I knew I wanted to go somewhere warm.
Okay.
My parents were like, California's really too far.
Yeah, it is far.
But you can go to Florida.
Okay.
So UF
No compromising, get to see each other. Yeah.
Yeah. So UF had the best reputation at that point.
Okay.
In terms of quality of education. So people here had no idea what the University of Florida was, but everybody in Florida knew, like, oh, if you go to the University of Florida, you're good.
Yeah.
So that's where I went.
Okay, cool. And now 40,000. Why did you want to go to such a large school?
Choices, options, people, busyness. I didn't like being in a small town with not a lot of people choices.
What to do, I guess. And, okay.
Nothing to do.
Okay.
Well, that's my issue now. I don't like
choices,
not
I like
but
that.
people choices. I was like, who are these kids? I mean, now I'm going to
If you
insult
don't
my
fit
entire
in a
town.
small school, you don't fit in.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't feel like I didn't fit in necessarily, but I didn't like the people I was around.
Right.
By and large, and there are exceptions, and I'm going to name one. I'm going to shout out one right now. Sharon Velasquez, this is for you. We just reunited again after many years of not being in touch. But she was one of my best friends. She was really my best friend growing up when I was very young. We lost touch, but now we're back in touch.
And then she went to the same college, or
no? We lost touch. She went to, I think, California, San Francisco. I want to say. Moved back to New York, worked here, but I was not in touch with her then. Okay. And now she's in Austria. With her husband and her kids.
As you would.
Yes, as you
California,
would. And
New
that's
York,
when
California,
that's
New
when we
York,
got
Austria.
back in. Right, exactly.
I like it.
Her husband's family's from there. Or he's from there.
Okay.
So yeah, I just
Austrian,
wanted
they
more.
like skiing?
Do I like skiing?
Do they like skiing?
There's some
good skiing over there.
Probably.
Okay.
I think she likes ice skating. I think she took her kids ice skating and told me about it.
Okay. In Austria.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of very
good.
Appropriate. Yeah. No, what's the oh my God.
Romantic? Idyllic? Beautiful?
I'm
Cold?
blanking on the whole thing. What's the Fantastic Austrian Family, the movie?
Oh,
The
Sound of Music?
Sound of Music.
I don't know. What's their family name?
What's the family?
I don't know.
Trap.
Von Trapp.
Von Trapp family. Now they have their house. Excuse us. Hopefully you won't get to see how my memory works. But the Von Trapp family house, when they left and came to the U.S., is still upstate New York.
Yes.
In the Catskills.
Yes. I do think I knew that factoid.
Right.
And you can stay there, right?
And you can stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a hotel.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of fun. Okay, so when you finished college, did you go straight to work? You take some time off, or what was your first job?
So do you want to know what I graduated with? What degree?
Yeah.
You want to guess?
Psychology?
Nope.
No?
This is why I'm having you guess, because you're not going to guess.
Oh, okay. French.
No. I did take French, though, growing up. That was my language.
Okay. What did you...
Accounting.
Accounting? No, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Right.
Okay, fascinating.
So I studied accounting, and I was terrible at it. Okay. Did not like it at all. Okay. Had no idea what I was doing, but I did make it through, and it was one of the top accounting schools in the country. It was like top 8 accounting schools or something. But for some reason, I made it through by the skin of my teeth, but I knew I didn't want to practice accounting. And I had these business classes, so I can go into business, finance, something like that. So I got a job with a bank, SunTrust, in Orlando.
Orlando, Florida.
Florida, working in commercial banking. So there was this training. It's basically for college grads from all around the country. They took in these kids, trained us all about like business credit or whatever, and we had to. Oh, it was so boring. But then they sent us to different parts of the bank to see what we would like. I really didn't like any of them, so I lasted just about a year. And that was it. And then I was like, this is not, and also corporate life was not for me.
In what way?
Every way.
Okay.
Like, who wants to do that? Go into a building day after day for hours and hours. Of course, certain jobs are great like that. Jack, my intern, just got a job. It's going to be, I'm really happy for him. And I don't want to turn you off from from that.
No, it's fantastic going to an office building day after day. Don't listen to her.
Speaking of not fitting in, I did not fit in with that class of, we were called management associates.
Right.
They were all so into learning about business and whatnot.
Okay, and that didn't.
And I was like,
you.
this is not for me.
Right.
So it was so boring, honestly. And I knew I had to do something else. And I was getting sick of the heat in Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In summertime or the whole time?
The whole time. I lived there a little bit over a year. And I was like,
Okay.
I need something else. This is not the life I want here.
Mm.
And I knew that my passion was always in film and television.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, something has to change. And I flew back home for a weekend. And I think my dad had a friend whose daughter was in the film industry. And he's like, just go meet with her. And I talked to her. And it was September. It was a beautiful day. It was like the weather was so much better than it was in Florida. And walking around the city, thinking about possibilities, I'm like, that's it for me. I'm coming back home. So I moved back here, but I didn't have a job.
Okay.
And then I'll walk you right through it. So I didn't have a job. I did interview with a guy who, this is so random. He made infomercials. He was an editor, and he said, I'll give you a job. I'll teach you editing, everything you would ever want to know about editing, for $19,000 a year.
He's going to pay you, or you're going to pay him?
He's going to pay me.
Okay.
But it's practically the same thing. It's practically I'm paying him because I couldn't
exactly.
afford to even live here for $19,000
Yeah, for sure.
a year.
Absolutely.
I couldn't even make it to work and back.
Right.
So I turned it down.
Okay.
And then I went looking for a job wherever. And I got myself a job at Comedy Central.
Oh, wow.
But because I was in business, it was a business job.
Okay.
So I worked in the ad sales department, crunching numbers.
Okay.
And it was Comedy Central. So it was cool.
Yeah.
And I met some of the talent. The Daily Show was just starting.
Oh, great show.
But it was Craig Kilborn.
Yeah.
And they were calling it the Daily Show as like a placeholder.
Right.
Because they didn't know what they were going to name it.
Yeah.
And it was a fun group of people. I was bored stiff, though, doing these numbers.
Doing what you were doing, yeah.
So I would sit in my little office,
Yeah.
and I'd turn on the radio. This is what you could do at Comedy Central.
Right.
And I would listen to a radio psychologist, a call-in show like Frasier,
Yeah.
where people would call in with their problems.
Yeah.
And she would give them, it was Dr. Joy Brown,
Yeah.
and she would give them advice. I loved listening to that.
Yeah.
And when I wasn't listening to that, people would come in, my coworkers would come in, sit in my office, put their feet up on my desk, and tell them their problems. And I was like, well, this is fun too.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I decided to go to grad school and study psychology.
Ah, wow. What an interesting kind of journey to get there.
Yeah. And at the time, I remember I was watching TV Land a lot at home.
Yeah.
The Bob Newhart show was on reruns.
God. Yeah.
He was a psychiatrist. I mean, they
It
were a
was
little
kind of
extreme.
coming at you, wasn't it?
It was coming at me.
Yeah.
All signs pointed to yes.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, doing it.
Love it.
Applied to grad school, went to grad school.
Yeah. And where'd you go to grad school?
Columbia.
Columbia. Okay.
Went to Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
Felt like an imposter.
Why is that?
You know, Columbia, it's an Ivy League school.
So?
Yeah, but
You're an Ivy League gal. If you
never
get in.
never thought of myself that way.
Okay.
So, okay, go get my master's. And then I start working as a therapist.
So when you've studied something else, and graduated with something else, and you go get your master's with something completely different, how does that work?
So first of all, everybody rejected me. Most schools were like, yeah, no, thank you. You have no accounting. I mean, you have no psychology background. So at first I was applying to doctorate programs, which are 5-year programs to become like a real deal psychologist. Now I'm calling myself not a real deal therapist, but I never call myself a psychologist. Anyway, so
Don't question it.
but I do like to tell everybody, like I was just saying the other day, I've been rejected from so many people, places, whatever it is in my life, like trying to get certain things, but that's how you get places.
Yeah, for sure.
So some of the schools, University of Miami was not interested in me for grad school. Because I was an accounting major undergrad. They're like, well,
that's
that's a big investment, I guess. There were a couple of smaller schools in Florida I applied to. these are not good schools, but I did not get into their PhD programs. Columbia wanted me and NYU wanted me.
Why?
Right?
I don't know.
Well, it's funny because I was talking to my son about this the other day, and I feel like, I didn't get certain jobs at places that were really low places. Like I remember when I graduated, I tried to get a job at the local psychiatric hospital. They didn't want me. So it's like so interesting that like crummy job like that I couldn't get, but much bigger and better things I have gotten. So I wonder if part of it is that the people who were on the committee at Columbia or NYU, maybe they have a different vision, like almost a sharper vision of what somebody's potential is, you know, or that there are possibilities. Maybe it's not so like there's a strict, no, you have to get your 4-year undergrad degree and you have to do this and that's what you do next. Like maybe it's a little bit more of a critical thinking. That's just a theory. I don't know.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting that those rejections kind of push you towards where you need to go.
Yes.
Right? Because we always look at those obstacles and those issues and those things as like a rejection of yourself, which they feel like at the time, but a lot of the time you're kind of destined for something else.
That is exactly right. And that's how I see it now.
Yeah.
I see a lot of things like that as thank God because this is or this was what led me to where I was really
if you had
need to be.
spent a year over there, you never would have come over here. Yeah.
If one of those schools in Florida accepted me as a PhD candidate,
we wouldn't be sitting here now. I don't think so.
We would not. And thank God we're sitting here. I couldn't be happier about it.
That's great.
That's so much better than if I were just sitting in an office day after day. You know, here we go back to that office theme, a different kind, but this is what I was meant to do.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving forward once again. I'm interested. So nowadays podcasts, there's plenty of them, right?
Oh yeah.
There seems like every movie that comes out or everything has a podcast attached, a lot of TV shows. But when you started really famous, it was kind of early on in the podcast piece, right? So what was it that attracted you to the podcast platform at such a kind of early time?
That's a good question, and nobody's ever asked me that before. So I feel like it was an early time, but it was like just on the cusp of becoming saturated, which is where it is now, I think. So my husband was an early adopter of podcasts. He listened
okay.
early.
Right.
So I remember he used to always want me, you should listen to podcasts, you'll love them. He would tell my dad the same thing. Podcasts, believe me, because my dad was a big radio person. Listener. He loved radio. And so I remember I finally started listening and I loved these podcasts, these long form conversations. I loved them, but I never thought about doing them. I was a writer at that point. So skipping ahead, I kind of, while I had my therapy practice, I also started freelance writing on the side. So I was writing for parenting magazines and then health and fitness magazines. And then I started writing like celebrity profiles and whatnot. New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Hollywood Reporter, Emmy magazine. So I was starting to move in kind of that direction and a little bit away from therapy because I really liked that. And then it's like that whole media industry started changing and magazines were just starting to fold and the ones that didn't fold, they became thinner and then all the fees that we would get paid just shrunk. So I was like, this is not good. So I need to pivot. And it was my husband who said, you should start a podcast. And I said, that's ridiculous. But I did. And that's, so I got in.
And so so you start a podcast. Actually, you know what? Let's continue with something else first. Now I'm going to ask you that question. Okay, so you're a therapist. And you might kind of slightly answer this question anyway, but I'm going to go for it. So I'm assuming there's a connection or at least an inspiration that would springboard from one to the other, but I'm not sure.
From what to what?
Well, from a therapist to an interviewer.
Yeah. So
I was trying to come up with that connection. Like, how did you, and I think you kind of answered a little bit, but it's an interesting.
So that's what, right. So that's the one thing that has stayed consistent all along, is that interest in people.
I was going to say that. So it's because it's, you like to tap into people.
I love to tap into people.
Yeah.
And it is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
I love it. And so that has always been there. And I think that's what drew me to psychology. And then as I started writing, which is part of, I guess, the bridge over, the writing was fine. But when I started interviewing people for, like, my editors would say, oh, can you interview this person? And then I liked that interview. And then because I love TV and movies, I would start pitching ideas on who to interview. And I started pitching actors because that's my thing. So like Edie Falco was one of the first people. And I was like, oh, I'm watching Nurse Jackie. She was Carmela Soprano. Like, let me interview her. And that's when I was really like, oh yeah. And I wasn't just, so I love what they're in, but I also just love getting to know who they really are. I really am into that. Like you said it perfectly, tapping into people. So that's the common thread that's always been there.
And the thing about the therapist is you tap into people, but you also get a lot of the, I think that would be very difficult being a therapist, just because everybody comes with so much luggage, and I don't know how you manage that and then go home and have a life, and do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a weight to it I would expect.
Yeah.
That would be hard to carry on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I think, yes. So being a therapist was definitely weightier than what I'm doing now. So there were a few things about that. And I'm kind of surprised to say that I learned kind of early on, naturally, how to not absorb their problems.
Right.
If I did, I wouldn't be able to help them.
Yeah,
I would just feel like down. And I would feel the same way they did. And then I would have no perspective on what they need. So I'm sure they taught me that in grad school, but I do remember feeling like that came kind of surprisingly naturally to me.
You could do that easily.
I would be in with them,
yeah,
totally, but I would be analyzing it because that's my job, is to put the pieces together of the puzzle. As they're telling me their story, it's my job to figure things out about it. So my brain was working the whole time.
Right.
So it wasn't just my heart getting heavier. And so I didn't really take it home with me. There were some scary people I had. That was something I did take home with me.
Right.
That I felt like they were getting a little too close, or that they weren't, maybe they had some feelings that they needed to have with somebody. And I was the one, and that's called transference. It's a technical term, and that's normal.
Yeah.
But I wasn't comfortable with that at all. And I had a family. I had little kids at the time, and I really needed that separation. So that to me was a little bit harder. Keeping everything private, my family private from work. And another thing that was hard was that I had to be that blank slate for them. So they can relate to me however they need to. So as a therapist, I was trained not to give too much about yourself. And so that I felt very serious of a person. Like I had to be a serious person, and you know me. That's not really who I am. I mean, I can be, but I'm both.
Yeah.
I go back and forth, full range.
Yeah.
So that felt limiting.
Yeah.
So that
it's interesting you say that, because I don't know why, but my brain's starting to spin in regards to there's an odd connection to that and being an actor a little bit.
Oh, really?
Well, just like, working and then not taking it home, right? How do you kind of let go of that, right? And then what does that, when it comes into your life, what does that mean, right?
Yeah.
How do you manage your family life and all of that kind of stuff at the same time?
Right. And I think some actors probably do more of it, and it's harder on them.
And then also, you play a serious character, and are you too serious?
Yeah.
You play a ridiculous character, you're too ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, you go to those extremes.
Well, I remember Jesse Eisenberg telling me when I interviewed him, he, I forget what movie it was. Oh, I want to say it was a movie about, who's that author? We're going to forget. Who's that? Oh, I don't even know how to describe the guy. But anyway, he played he played a journalist who was following an author on a tour. It was called End of the Tour, I think, of the movie. And it was a very heavy, heavy, deep role. And I remember him telling me it was like, it took him forever to get beyond that and feel okay again, because he would feel things so deeply, what his character was going through, that it affected his choices later about which roles he would take.
For sure.
And then I think about Michael Emerson, who's a fellow CBS guy like on Evil and Person of Interest, and Lost, not CBS, but I remember telling me that that's not his way at all.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I don't think that's necessary at all. And he is a very well-trained actor.
Yeah, yeah.
But he told me, like, no, he just is the person when he's acting. And then as soon as he stops, he's done. So I think
it's just different people do
different people,
things.
exactly.
But also different roles and different kind of projects call for different things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it really depends on the piece, who's involved in the piece, your directors, your creators.
Right.
How much investment they want, how much investment they need. You know, there's a different level of investment for, you know, what you would consider your Oscar-worthy movie and a TV show, let's say. You know what I mean? But it's kind of finding that.
But I think, right. I remember Nip Tuck was hard on you, right?
I get invested.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it difficult. I'm trying to learn how not to, because not invested, but more so affected. Right? Mm-hmm. But they all do a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I kind of always pick like extreme characters too. So they're always kind of extreme in some kind of way. But anyway, enough about me.
Yeah. But you have to get into their headspace, where I have to stay, as a therapist, I had to stay out of their headspace, see it,
right,
understand it,
yeah,
but not enter it.
But then the switch off is the interesting thing.
But that's why it was probably easier for me to switch off, because I wasn't entering it.
Right.
I was an outsider.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. Now you called your podcast Really Famous Podcast. It's an interesting name. Why Really Famous Podcast?
Okay, so it took forever to come up with the name. All my friends were involved. I was like, I don't even remember how long, but it really comes down to just a simple concept, which is I interview famous people, but I'm interested in who they really are.
Oh, I like that.
Again, tapping into who they really are.
Yeah.
And that's the whole show.
That's great. I love that. That's a different interpretation than what I did.
What did you think? Just super famous or something?
Well, I kind of went for the face value, right? Really famous people, or you know what I mean? Like just kind of. But I like that. That's that's a nice play on. Yeah. The vernacular and also the way that you've structured it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Thanks. I like it because it. You know, I'm not like, oh, this is the greatest name ever, but I do feel like I have to explain it, which is the problem, though. I have to explain it to people, but when I do, it's an aha moment. Like, of course it's that.
And that's God, and I quite like that.
Yeah.
Think about it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So something a little bit more behind. Usually I find always there's something more behind than what you see. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, of course.
We kind of talked about this a little bit. But I read a quote of yours that says, I truly like people. Right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of the reason that we kind of connected. Right? I think we're both kind of have this innate kind of real interest in people. Yes. Right? And you seem to like to connect with your guests. So my assumption is, and correct me if I'm wrong once again, that's who you are as a person. Oh, 100%. Okay. That's who I am as a person. Yeah. Because you never know when you see a show or you see things. Right. You always, you don't really know who the person is. And I've met many people who you see in a certain manner, and you see them in person, they're not that person you thought they were. Yeah. See, that for me, I don't see that as often as you. Because you probably, are you talking about like fellow actors and things that you would see them in a different? It could be fellow actors. It could be business people that you know or whatever. And you kind of know, or politicians or whatever, this kind of personal persona. Mm-hmm. And it's little snippets, Yeah. It's almost like an Instagram of their life. You know what I mean, right? We get this little tiny fantastic snippet, but then you get to meet them and they could be more extraordinary or more complicated or more intellectually orientated or funnier or sillier or stupider or angrier or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever. I am what you say. But it seems to me like you do have a sincere interest in people and who they are and what makes them tick. And well, that's what you see, and I think that's why it works. That's why this works,
that's why my show works, I think, is because I don't have to turn something on at all except the cameras. I have to turn the cameras on and the voice recorder, but
and the microphones.
Exactly. So those have to be turned on, but aside from that, I just get to be. So like my preparation before an interview is I will be like, okay, do I have to try to get to these topics, a few of these points that the audience will be upset with me for if I don't mention them at all, but really I'm just in it to meet the person and get to know the person. So I'm coming in as myself. So I don't have to do any kind of shtick or whatever.
Right.
Which is like, it's more uncomfortable for me taping an intro because I have to think about it.
Yeah, sure. You got to be on for a moment.
Yes. But when I'm just sitting here talking to you, like,
you can do that all day.
All day.
Right.
All day, every day.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't feel like a show or performance or anything, because that's who I am, and that's what I want to do, is tap into you, get to know you better.
So this just kind of came to me. You said when you kind of prep for an interview, how did you prep to be a guest?
Oh, it was great. I even said to my daughter before, I was like, well, because I have to prep for the tech part, right? So I had to we're at the Westgate in New York right now, and I had to get here before you because we had to set up the cameras and whatnot. So my daughter came with me today, and my assistant Jack came today, and so we had to do all of that. And I remember standing with my daughter, there was a little snafu on the terrace, and the snafu was that we were going to tape on the terrace today with a great view of the East River and Manhattan, the UN, but it started raining. Yeah. So I actually remember saying to her, so we had to kind of think of everything, and I was like, but it's nice that I don't have to prep my interview, which is normally I have to think to myself, okay, what do I want to make sure that I cover or whatever.
Yeah, you take a look at your notes, and I was doing that this more.
Right. So you had to do the prep today, and I did none, which is beautiful. I just had to prep the equipment. That's it.
I love it.
Which was a nice change.
That's great. Okay, so I kind of think this is interesting because it kind of says a lot about you, but also says about some people that I have some interest in, and that is some people that you've had on the show. There's a lot of people you've had on the show. When I was looking at, when I was prepping for us to get together, I was looking at different people, and there's a lot of people that I was like, oh, I haven't kind of. It's an interesting thing as an audience. You kind of, and I know this might sound obvious, but you get to take a journey with people when you get to see them on television or film or whatever, and you kind of think they're a part of your life, right? And so there's a couple of people there who I was like, oh gosh, what are they doing? What are they? Now there's one person I think I know how you feel about them, but I wanted to ask a couple of people. Is that okay with you?
Of course. I love gushing about the guests who I love.
Okay, great.
So I have no problem talking about them.
Let's hope you love them all. And she doesn't know who any of these are, by the way. So this is all, she doesn't know anything that I have kind of scripted down here. So. And
by the way, let me jump in and say that there are very few people who I would look back on and say, I really dislike this person, over all the years of the people that I interviewed.
That's good to know.
So, but if you mention somebody who was in that little group, I wouldn't throw them under the bus, but I wouldn't gush about them either. And so when I gush, it's authentic. Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is, are you ready for it?
Yeah.
One of my favorites, Danny Aiello.
One of my favorites.
Oh, yeah?
Oh,
okay.
Seriously?
Great.
I love him.
Yeah.
Love Danny. He's one of those people. So I feel like I also took a little bit of something from him. So, all right, I'll give you a little backstory. You want to know how we got started and all that stuff? All right. So he was doing a show, like a musical performance, I guess. It was just a lot of songs. It was a Christmas special on Broadway a few years ago. And I snagged an interview with him because I really didn't think I was going to be able to. He was so busy. We did it on a Sunday between 2 performances in his dressing room. His manager, Louis, was there. Now, his manager, Louis, like the two of them were like this. I mean, tight as glue, whatever you say. I don't know what the expression is, but they were so tight. And Louis, anywhere Danny went, Louis went. And anything Danny said, Louis said some things about it too. So Louis was a constant in his life. So Louis in the dressing room with us, and you can hear him during the podcast. He's just jumping in and saying things. So I adored Danny because he was himself. Like we're talking about, he was, what you see is what you get. He was 100% who he is, and so just vibrant and really ate up life, and so friendly and so real, and you just knew he was just wonderful human. So Louis, of course, kept saying, okay, we got to wrap up, and I kept trying to go push it a little bit longer. Anyway, then Danny shows me around. He introduces me to some people as we were leaving, and that was the end of that. Oh, and then during that time, he was like, yeah, we have to get together. We'll go have lunch or something. And I said, yes, let's have lunch. And he said, yes, but Louis got to come or my wife, Sandy, will kill me, you know? So I said, okay, great. Louis can come. Great. Let's set it up. So he said, okay, talk to Louis. Great. We'll set it up. Yeah. So I leave. I try texting Louis. Nothing's getting set up. I just my texts just get ignored. Yeah. I call eventually. I just get ignored. And then eventually, I'm going to say it was probably a year later, I really wanted to interview him. Oh, this is what it was. I was doing a video reel, and I wanted a little video, because back then it was just a podcast, audio only. Okay. So I wanted Danny on video. So I reached out to Louis again. I said, Louis, I need like 5 minutes on tape with Danny. Can you please set this up? So it took a million times of getting back and forth. Yeah. And finally, he was filming something on Long Island, a movie. It was his last movie. And he said, okay, you can come out to Long Island when he's on set, and we'll do 5 minutes. Okay. So I made it out to Long Island, only to find out later he and I lived like a few miles away from each other.
You and Danny? Get out of here.
We found out when we were there on Long Island. It was like a 2.5-hour trek out to the dead end. So I sit down with him there, and of course 5 minutes turned into like 3 hours.
Oh my God.
And it was amazing. And he told me things, and he just was him, and he was so, I just don't even know what to say except that he was one of the greatest humans. Yeah. And I felt like we had more time together. I was like, oh, now we're buddies, and we'll keep seeing each other. And then a few months later, I got word that he died, which was awful. I felt so bad. And I went to his memorial, and it was really nice because Louis then saw me there, and he invited me to the little family memorial that they had after, like a little reception. And yeah, that was really that. Except I remember at the memorial thinking to myself, I need to take a little more of Danny Aiello's approach to life.
And so what was that?
So that is being out there, putting yourself out there to people, the people you love, the people you like. Like, there's no need for a big boundary. Get together with people, show them how much you love them, take life in. I mean, it wasn't just me. Everybody loved him like this. You should have heard people. At the memorial, we were all, everybody in the pews, basically, we were all talking to each other, getting to know, how did you know Danny? How did you know Danny? Everybody, it was like his way of living was transferred onto everybody there. It was a great feeling. It wasn't about mourning him. It was about channeling him. And it was the coolest thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
What a great guy.
Yeah, and I think that came across in with him on camera, you know, I think he really kind of, firstly, he was like this old school actor-ish kind of guy, right? Just because that's the way that he was, but also that kind of warm heart, kind of the bombastic kind of bit bigger than life, you know, energetic, gregarious.
Yes.
Fascinating. Awesome.
By the way, he had very low self-confidence at the same time.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He was a dichotomy. At certain times he felt like, hey, it's me, Danny Aiello. And other times he was like, I'm too nervous to even go on.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. The next guest who I got a kind of funny story about this one, but Steve Buscemi.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the right way to pronounce it?
So I think that I say Buscemi, but Buscemi. I think I'm wrong.
Okay.
I think that's the Italian way to say it is Buscemi, but I think he pronounces it Buscemi.
Buscemi. Okay.
I believe.
Either way, I'll tell you a little funny story. Because I really enjoyed him as an actor, right? And then the show Boardwalk Empire came out, which at the time when it came out, I was shooting and I didn't get to see it. And then I got some time off and I was watching things and trying to catch up on things that I, whatever. So I think it was probably 5 years after the show. It was at least a couple of years after the show had finished.
Yeah. Because it's an older show now.
Yeah. And so I started watching it, and then I'd go to like meetings and things, and I'd be like, "Have you seen this show, Boardwalk Empire?" And everybody would be like, "Yeah, like 5 years ago." I'm like, "It's fantastic." And they're like, "Yeah, thanks."
That is so funny.
It was pretty funny, but I was so obsessed with it.
I never saw it.
You never saw it? Mm-mm. Yeah, you should see it. Because it's all this whole area.
Yeah, Atlantic City.
It's all Atlantic City, New Jersey, New York, 1920s. Mm-hmm. Okay, back to the one other person I wanted to ask you about is a guy called Mike Rowe.
Mike Rowe. Yeah, Mike Rowe. Mike Rowe, what do you want to know?
Well, I think I kind of became I became more conscious of him with Deadliest Catch, I think, was when I first kind of became aware of him. But then kind of, look, the voice that guy has, and he's got a great cadence and a great kind of, communicative ability. Mm-hmm. He's strong, but kind of almost compassionate at the same time. He's thoughtful. Have you ever heard his podcast, The Way I Heard It?
I think I did right before I interviewed him. I listened to it because that was part of my research.
It's awesome.
Yes, I think he had his mom call in, Peggy, on the show.
To the
he was the podcast, right? Because he has a book called The Way I Heard It too.
I think so. Yeah.
Does he read from the book on the podcast?
No. I think the podcast came out first.
Okay.
Basically, the podcast is about interesting stories that you would never have a clue that was what was the story behind it or something. But he also does it he structures it in a really cool way as to like, you get like little tidbits of who you think it might be, and then he kind of reveals it and you go, oh, That's his storytelling. Yeah. Totally. That's his technique. Yeah. And he's just great at it. And he obviously does a lot of work and research on it, and it's great if you get a chance to look at it or listen to it. But
yeah.
So you interviewed him, and
I did.
He seems like a great guy to me. I don't know if I'm kind of... No?
No, I'm not saying no. I was waiting to hear you. No, I was waiting to hear you to finish the sentence.
I'm cautious that you're going to have one of those people that...
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm thrilled that I had Mike on the show. Let me just say this. So I'm not a Dirty Jobs fan. Yeah. I never really watched it. That's not really my kind of show. But I had him. He was coming on, so I did a little bit of the research. I listened to the podcast. He's the voice, Deadliest Catch, all that. But he was So because I didn't really know him and his work that well beforehand, I did something interesting. I put out a question on Facebook to his fan groups. And believe me, he has fans. I mean, passionate. They love him. Love. I've had all kinds of celebrities on the show, and the most famous ones aren't necessarily the ones who have the most loyal fan groups.
Kind of committed. Yeah.
Mike Rowe is one of those. He has a lot of people who just adore him, just think he's the greatest. And so I went to these groups and said, what don't you know about Mike that you would like to know about him? I don't want to ask the same questions. And I realized from their questions that even though everybody knows him because he's being himself on these shows, they knew nothing about his personal life or like how he feels about things. So I was like determined that's what I'm going for with Mike. I need to get to that personal side because everybody, all these intense fans, they know everything already. Right. So he went there with me.
Did he?
Totally did. Okay. And I was able to give these fans like the greatest interview. I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but it's like they don't know this about Mike. They don't know his personal life or how he feels about not having kids or relationships or stalkers or all of this stuff. being cheated on, he talked about. Like we talked about all of this, and it was a gift, I think, to all of his fans.
Wow.
And so he was a little surprised too. But he said to me at one point, I think I revealed that I was a therapist, and he said, "Oh, well, you really put me on the couch, didn't you, Kara?" So it was wonderful. It was a great interview. I'm so glad we did it. And he's such a smart guy, too. He's so smart, and he's analytical, and he was very honest with me, I felt.
Yeah.
So all of that together, thrilled. I interviewed him, and I like him.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's not one of the ones I don't like. That's not why I was pausing. I just wanted you to finish your sentence.
I thought I was treading on the wrong.
Yeah. But he did. He shared a lot, and I was really happy that he did.
Okay, I love
and then I interviewed his mom, by the way.
Did you really?
I had her on the show.
His mom has a lot to do with his life, I think, because he talks about her a lot in the podcast.
She's like an 80-something-year-old author, and she's on his show a lot. She talks about him. She has a big Facebook following herself.
That's so
and
cool.
People love his parents.
Right.
Yeah.
Funny.
Peggy.
Okay, now this is like a quick interjection from our people, and then we'll get back and whatever. But I got 8 questions I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
Okay? You just kind of off the cuff kind of thing. Answer how you like, and then we'll move on to the next question.
So these are short answer?
Yeah, do whatever you want.
Okay.
You can go for 2 days if you
You're
need
like
to.
me. This is why also, I'm going to back up for a second, because this is why, like you said, this is why we connected, I think, right away, is because we both have that same authentic interest in people. So, and which is why I invited you to be the interviewer, because
Wow.
I knew that's how you would be. So I think your style is very similar to mine as an interviewer, even though this is probably your first interview, is it?
It is.
All right.
I feel very honored to be asked to be here,
good.
by the way, so thank you.
And you deserve it.
Thank you.
And you have risen to my expectations and beyond.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Short answer.
Okay. No, you don't have to
Oh,
short
right.
answer. Whatever you, but we can short answer.
I've made the mistake before of saying something short answer with people who can't give a short answer.
Yeah.
And then you do lose that rhythm a little bit.
No. This is all free for whatever you want it to.
All right.
Whatever you want it to be. Okay. What's your favorite color?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the thing is. Trees, purple, dresses, red. Generally speaking, I'm attracted to blues, like ocean blues, and maybe some like sea glass green to go with it. Also love white. It's very clean.
So your favorite color is 6 of them.
Yes, exactly. Which is
My
why
favorite color is every color there is.
I wanted a college that had 40,000 students. Choices,
I
variety.
love it. Okay, what's your favorite time of day?
I'm going to give you the same answer.
Okay.
Like, I like mornings.
I thought you were going to say red dresses.
I like mornings. I also like an afternoon. I like a late afternoon. I like an evening. I'm going to say probably right before the sun sets. I'm picturing myself on the beach, and that's the best time at the beach at like 5 o'clock or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's a nice time.
Okay.
Depends on where I am.
Yeah, okay. I love it. What's your favorite vacation spot?
Italy.
Italy.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Are we down south, or are we in Venice, or
So
are we in...
I feel drawn to Italy by and large. One of my favorite places is Viareggio, which is near Florence on the beach. But I also feel at home in the whole Napoli area. I just feel like that's just a little grittier and authentic, and you should like that too, because this is real people. I feel like it's the people that I love. I mean, I love the landscape too, but it's the people, the Danny Aiello personality, or the authenticity, and the love and the passion and all of that. It's all there. So anywhere except the Amalfi Coast in August, when all of the tourists are there and you hear more English being spoken than Italian.
It's particular about August. Yeah, I love it. I mean, I just love going to Rome. I lived in Milano for a year when I was like 18 or I was modeling at the time. And
well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting.
What was that
actually.
like?
It was awesome. I mean, I arrived in Milano. You know what? I'm going to get too much into myself. Let's talk about
Okay, but by the way, I love that you call it Milano. What did I call it? Napoli or Naples? I think I said
I think
Napoli.
you called it both.
Okay. But it's funny that you still call it Milano.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're not just going to call it Milan.
Well, it's interesting because I was there for a year or so, and I picked up Italian because I had to. You can't get around without it. But you pick up Italian really quickly.
Okay, I'm so jealous of you right now. Or sorry, envious is the word. Jealousy is between three people. But anyway, I'm so...
The psychiatrist right there.
I just found...
She
well, I
just
just read
evaluated
this.
herself.
This is like the journalist in me because I've just read... I love words and meanings and whatnot. And I just read this like not that long ago. The difference between jealousy and envy is that jealousy is between three people. There's a third person involved.
Oh, okay.
Envy is two.
Yeah, I think you can say that I'm jealous of something, though.
I know, that's
you know
what I
mean?
said,
I'm
but the
jealous
better
of
word
that
is
chocolate
envy.
bar that person's eating, or that.
Well, I'm envious that
Yeah.
you picked up Italian like that because I have been learning Italian, trying to learn
I
Italian.
lost it that quickly too. But I think you got to go to Italy.
I think you're right. Yes, I have to go to Italy, but I bet if you go back to Italy, it comes right back to you.
I did start but I got mixed up with a little Spanish. I get all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm not very good with languages. I wish I was much better. But anyway, my daughter, on the other hand, is very good. Okay, so New York City in winter or Florida?
Yeah, in winter only.
Hey, that's the question.
Put me in Miami in the winter.
We talk a lot about the weather, so I thought it was a funny
It's
one to bring up.
important to us.
It is important, isn't it? All right. Do you like reading or watching television?
Well, both. But both. But I would say television. I love it. Love it. I watch it all. You know, lowbrow, highbrow. I just am really interested in. I love the stories.
Yeah.
But I also love reading.
Yeah, because I find at home I switch the TV on a lot, but I go on vacation, I read the whole time.
Yeah, same. I don't watch TV much on vacation. I will read. So again, it depends on where and when.
Yeah. Exercise or a bowl of ice cream?
Both.
One after the other?
I'm not a
exercise and then a bowl of ice cream, or is it a bowl of ice cream and then exercise?
Enjoy. I don't know. While you're maybe like scoops of the ice cream, like spoonfuls or whatever in between on the treadmill. I do not like the gym, not my thing. But I walk. I love walking. So I know that's not. It is exercise, but it's not
it's a great exercise.
working out. But I walk my dog for these long, long walks, and I love it. And I go fast and far, and it's my favorite thing. And I love ice cream. Like I love a good gelato, chocolate gelato in Roma. Can't go wrong.
We lived in a place in California, and my daughter was in the middle of high school, and every night there was a local ice cream shop, and it closed at midnight. And every night she'd be up studying all night. And every night I go down about 11:45 and go and get us ice cream. It's so awesome.
I love that. See, those are little things. They're great little times,
Oh, they're just like those little moments that stand out, right?
Yeah. And then you go walk around after, and it's called La Passeggiata. It's in Italy. This is what they do. They'll go get a little gelato, and it's not going to be a
but
massive
you also go
size.
to dinner. You have your dinner thing, and you go for a walk and get some gelato.
Exactly.
Love that.
Just walk around.
We're moving. Clam bar or lobster roll?
Wait, clam bar?
Well, clam soup. Clam bar.
So it's when you were talking about seafood before,
Yeah.
I was thinking about one of my favorite. I love seafood, but anytime we used to vacation at the Jersey Shore, my staples were, and they still are when I go to Boston. New England clam chowder and steamers. I love steamers. They're steamed clams, but they're very specific.
Okay.
I don't love clams in general as much as steamers, which they're also called piss clams.
Yes,
Fact.
no, I know. I'm not sure I like that name, but
okay, right.
I'll go with it.
But that is
but
what
that's
they
actually
are.
kind of what they do.
Okay, I don't need to know that though.
Okay, no, it's water.
Oh, okay. So they shoot water out.
They shoot water out because they're filter animals, right? They like oysters and whatever else. They filter the water through their system, but they kind of shoot it out.
Right. And never look too close at the piss clam. It really does not look appetizing at all. You have to kind of just like dip it in the butter or the clam juice and just eat it. Lobster rolls, I like them when they're not mayo-y. I don't like mayo.
Oh, okay. There's this place on the way out to Montauk. It's on the left-hand side of that freeway, Montauk Highway, as you go out. And it's called the Clam Bar or something.
Okay. Wait. That's the lobster roll.
Lobster roll.
Isn't it?
Ridiculous.
Oh, so you're talking about the names of places.
No.
Oh.
I was just talking about what you know.
Okay.
I find the seafood here so interesting because you got the New England clam chowder. Then what's the other clam chowder? The
Manhattan. But nobody has that here.
I had it the other day.
Oh, in Manhattan? In Manhattan?
No, in Long Island.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I never have Manhattan clam cheddar, but I do love, by the way, I do love spaghetti, linguine with clam sauce, or
Right, yeah, me too.
spaghetti alle vongole in Italian. But the lobster roll, which is on the way to Montauk, if not in Montauk, was... Did you see the show The Affair? With Dominic Weist? Is that West?
Yeah.
Dominic West? Not
Yeah.
Weist. That's Diane Weist. Dominic West and... that's loud. Who is Ruth Wilson?
Sorry, I don't know.
You don't know that one?
No.
I feel like you would like it. I
The
feel like you might
Affair?
want to try it on Showtime. It was
Okay.
Showtime then. But it took place out in Montauk, the whole story.
Okay.
And that was a big part of the show. And I remember
Okay.
driving out there once when the show was still on. I was like, gotta take a picture of this.
Okay.
Because I'm always a fan of TV shows.
Uh-huh.
Like by the way, if I see a sign that says base camp,
You go.
I'm going. I am there. Like, it doesn't matter that I sit down with
I've been invited, but I'm
celebrities
going.
or whatever. I am still so passionately obsessed with behind the sne's of TV shows. I love
That's
it.
fantastic. Okay, if time and the universe allowed for it, would you come back as Kara? Maybe fix a few mistakes, do whatever, if there were any, or would you come back as somebody else?
Oh, that's so interesting. I think I would try somebody else because I've done this already. I don't think I'd fix anything. I don't really have many regrets in life, so I don't think I would. I don't feel the need to switch anything up.
Mm-hmm.
I feel lucky that I am where I am.
I think the mistakes are half of it, aren't they? If not
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
You learn much more that way. And as we were saying before, they lead you to where you're destined to be, where it's great.
Yeah. No, I love
One
the mistakes.
door opens.
Okay,
and
cool.
one door closes.
Okay, to finish up, I have this slightly esoteric question for you.
Okay.
So if I were to tell you that whatever dream, wish, or desire that you had at this present moment, whatever it was, that were able to come true, what would that be?
Does it have to be one thing?
One thing.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
I got to limit you somewhere. You can't come up with another 360
I want to give you all
colors.
the colors. Okay, one thing. I'm going to kind of encapsulate a lot in the one thing.
You're going to try and make one thing 6?
Well, I want to cover all the important things. So, like, all my priorities in life, of course, family, friends. I'm not allowed to say more than one thing. So, but I'm right now I'm about to fire off like 4 different things that I would like to have. I will. TV show.
You've already said
travel.
3. That's 4. That's 5.
But I'm going to try to encapsulate or use one thing to encapsulate all of it.
Okay, but if it all came into one thing, what does that mean?
Which is, I think, a life with a Danny Aiello life, I'm going to call it, because of how we talked before.
A life that's...
And full, passionate, loving, a lot of love there, a lot of personality, a lot of art, a lot of travel, a lot of all of that, all the good things, just the good things, all of it. It's all there. So all of that.
Great. That's a lot.
Does that count as one thing?
You snuck it around a little bit. Did you see that?
Yes, and this is why I was never an accountant.
Absolutely.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah. And that's all we have for today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you feel?
I feel great. I really appreciate you inviting me onto your show and taking the time to chat to me and sit in that seat as opposed to this one. And that was really fun. It's really cool.
As you know, I'm Kara Mayer Robinson, and this is my special guest interviewer.
Julian McMahon, the interviewer, de jour.
Hope you liked it.